In less than 24 hours, the dollar, the way of life, the economy will change forever. Now, am I saying that something will take place tomorrow? No. What I am saying, though, within a 24-hour period, we could lose the whole American way. The prospering America, the thriving economy, the American dream, all that could be gone within 24 hours because we are just teetering. We're teetering on the edge of a plateau. Can we ground ourselves again, or can we fall off the side? How serious is our way of life now? How dangerous and detrimental is what we're doing? Are we living in this upside down world? And can we bring normalcy back? 24 hours, we could end it all. We could lose it all. Our dollar could collapse. And is that fear? No, it's reality. Now let's jump into what I'm talking about today. This video starts right now.
You're lighting up the way, I can see the road ahead of me. I won't be stumbling in the dark. Your eyes are shining.
Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you like our content, give us a thumbs up. Just by you giving us a thumbs up, it tells YouTube that you like our content and that other people should watch it as well. So please share our content. Also, if you like our channel, subscribe to it. It costs nothing and you always are up to date on things that are going on. Our goal is to build a wise way of looking at the world when it seems like it's in chaos. Now today, what can happen within 24 hours to then make everything that we know about America change? The dollar, the economy, the way of life. It's that serious. It's about being prepared and understanding the reality that we have placed ourselves in and how we should not put all our eggs in one basket because that basket could easily turn over. So let's go through a few things that would take our 24-hour period and change everything that we know about America. First, let's talk about our world. We're living in a world to where America's focus has not been on American people, it's been on the world. And that can cause a destructive, chaotic crash to everything that we know in America. First of all, the fact that we are spending money that we don't have across the world. We are worried about everybody else's wars. When we worry too much about adversarial relationships and when we worry about everybody else's stuff, then we all of a sudden miss out on what's actually happening here, and it takes our focus off building the true American dream. We are threatened with nuclear war. We are threatening others by moving nuclear warheads and battleships with nuclear capabilities and airplanes with nuclear capabilities closer to certain areas. That one threat alone could change the world as we know it, can change American way as we know it. We're one U.S. soil attack. We're one U.S. military base attack. We're one movement of troops in the wrong direction away from nuclear war, from World War III, or from a chaotic Middle East to where we're putting troops back there. That will change the way of life because, again, our focus has not been on American way. It's been on the world's way. And we've got to change that. We've got to get our focus back to America and American sovereignty and taking care of the American people. We'll talk a little bit more, but the American people are suffering now. And no one tends to care about the American people. We care about every other person. If I want to have the best marriage and the best children and the best home possible, I can't focus on someone else's marriage, someone else's children, and someone else's way of raising their family. I have to focus here at home. I have to make my marriage better, my children's life better, based on building my family first. Now, could I help other people? Yes, but I have to make sure my family is taken care of first. That's what we're missing out in America. And that's what can really bring us to the brink of collapse when we focus on everybody else's stuff and not our own problems first. Number two that goes along with that, the fact that our economy is on the brink of collapse. Our dollar is just this close to being over. Now you hear the fact that our dollar is stronger than ever. Our dollar is making a comeback. That can all be true. But with one change, one little small thing, that can go away. What have we seen with the Great Depression? What did we see with the fact of 08-09 housing market crash? We're there again because we are spending more money than we're bringing in. Think about your home. How many times could you do that? To where you bring in X amount of dollars, but then you're spending double that. You're spending triple that. Well, that's what we're doing as a government. Because the government is spending like they are spending, they're printing more money, which is costing you, because the inflation and the interest now you're feeling. It's just an extra tax on the American people. Well, then guess what? The middle class and lower class are now starting to live more on debt to buy the discretionary things because they typically cannot afford to live. They can't even afford a home. We are just that close. A tiny little problem in our economy could erupt an implosion in our economy to where our dollar crashes. And it's just that close because we are spending more than we are actually bringing in. In a perfect world, you can pay all your debts because your personal economy is doing okay. You're making money, so then you can pay those monthly notes. What if all of a sudden you lose your job? Your credit card bill, your housing bill, your automotive bill, your insurances, your retirements, all that stuff starts coming due and you start getting all these notices. Well, it'd be nice if you could just go print money and then send it out, but you can't. Now, you could borrow money and then pay all that, but then you are slave to that lender because now you've borrowed money. Well, that's what we're doing with the American economy. We're borrowing from the future generations of America. We're borrowing from our adversaries like China. We're borrowing from fake money where we print it and then inflation is going to cost us. We are that close to seeing a 24-hour change in our economy to where if all of a sudden something breaks out, your money's not worth anything anymore. Number 3, our supply chain. Think about it. How much do you depend on from the grocery store? How much do you depend on from buying online? How much do you depend on going to town each and every day to buy the goods and necessities that you're needing? Panic buying ensues within a 24 to 48 hour period if something goes down. You think of a storm coming. You think of the fact of a massive chaos. You think of the fact of a warning of a nuclear threat. Or you saw in Israel where Iran threatened and everybody went to the store and started buying. What's happening there is they're not prepared and then they try to over-prepare by panic buying. The supply chain cannot handle that influx. Why? Most cities, over 95% of people in America depend on going to stores. But in most cities, 99% of people, 99%, so less than 1%, are sustainable in their homes if something were to occur. So what that means is the supply chain cannot fulfill the necessities that is needing if all of a sudden rapid onset of people come in and need goods. That's not to count the looting and thieving that is happening in our cities. If we keep at that mentality where our supply cannot fix the problems, think of the global trade. We're not providing for ourselves just in America anymore. We're providing for the world. The world is also providing for us. We need so many goods from China and India. We need those we need those canals. We need those ways of transport with shipping, with trucking. Well, if all of a sudden that goes down, the supply chain breaks, panic buy ensues, do you have the necessities that you're needing? That right there will change the world if all of a sudden you go to the store and there's nothing there. Study shows that 2/3 of Americans do not have enough to eat or provide for themselves for 2 to 3 days in their own home. 2 to 3 days. If you don't have 2 to 3 days worth of goods and food, could you make it? What if all of a sudden you couldn't go to the store and 2 to 3 days, that's all you had? How does that change your mentality? You go from having the goods to then survival mode. Survival mode makes people do crazy things. Within 24 hours with a major situation like threats, you could see panic buying take place, supply chain breakdown, and then bam, you're back in the situation where people are now in survival mode and panic mode, and that makes people do crazy things. Look at our cities. That should tell you exactly what would happen. The looting, the thieving, the theft, the way of life would break down very, very quickly. Now, what do? How can we keep ourselves as safe as possible during this time? Well, first we have to realize that we are our own worst enemies. Just like I said about the American dollar, we're the ones that's causing the dollar to falter because we're spending more than we actually have. We're spending more than we are bringing in. Well, let's talk about that at home. If we're going to take care of ourselves, we have to depend on ourselves and not the government. We have to depend on ourselves and not other people. So that means when we don't need something, we don't need to buy it. A want is one thing, and the American dream is great. I want you to have things. But if the American dream is faltering, or we're worried about the American dream, or we can't afford the American dream, then we have to realize what a want is and what a need is. We have to realize that our cities are not the safest place. So if you live in the city and you're a God-fearing person and you're wanting to see change, then the city may not be where you want to live. Squatters have more rights than the homeowners. The fact that it costs more to live in the city. So it may take you saying, you know what, I need to move. I need to get away from the cities. If you feel like you can't, then I think you, as in the city living, need to prepare even more. This video pertains to you even more because, again, 99% of people in cities can't provide for themselves. They cannot grow food. They cannot have a farm. So therefore, they can't grow gardens. Well, that means you better stockpile even more. So if you can't leave the city, then this video may even more benefit you than the person that lives in rural America. Also, we've got to quit electing these same people. Do you know there's no other time in history where Americans distrusted or disliked their people in charge more than now? That's on both parties. That's on all three major branches of government, and that's on all the governmental bodies and regulatory bodies that pretty much prevail over us. We're at a time where we don't trust the government. Now, if that's the case, that means whatever they tell us, we tend to not listen to, or we tend to take it in a snide way. So if they warn us that something's going to take place, we're like, it's the boy that cried wolf again. And so therefore we shy it off, and then all of a sudden something actually does happen, then we're back in that panic ensue moment and survival mode. Now, what that means is we stay prepared. And that means it's not that we don't trust the people in charge, but that we take their words with a grain of salt. Then we learn to research and do our own common sense approach to saying, okay, what is the wisest way to look at this? If we know our government is blowing money and they're making our dollar struggle, wouldn't it be wise to buy things and have assets? Wouldn't it be wise to maybe have some extra food and security? Wouldn't it be wise to have something to defend our home with? Wouldn't it be wise to maybe buy some precious metals? To buy some antiques that hold value? Wouldn't it be wise to invest in something that does not lose value when all of a sudden the dollar does crash? If our government keeps spending money and providing more debt, and that's making our dollar worth less, and we're also seeing inflation make our dollar worth less, why don't we worry about trying to pay off our debts with our dollar now so we won't feel that if all of a sudden we have more debts and our dollar's not going as far and we're having to buy groceries for more and then we're still sitting here with a pile of debt. So why don't we say, instead of putting more money into, new things, let's start paying for the old things so that way we won't put ourselves in binds like the government is doing. Why don't we look at ways to say, okay, if I can barter goods, things like food, things like spices, things like hygiene items, things like antibiotics, things like emergency preparedness, things like water filters, they may be better investments than just dollar bills. So do we keep cash at hand? Sure, absolutely, I do. But it may be where we don't put all our eggs in one basket, because if all of a sudden the dollar falls and you've got piles of dollars, what are they worth? You burning in a fireplace to keep warm. So it may be, let's invest in things that are barterable, and also invest in ourselves by paying our debts, and also look at other forms of assets, like what most countries are doing right now is they're buying precious metals, they're buying natural goods, they're buying commodities, they're buying food, because they realize there may be better survival when we have things that we can utilize and not just cash. And lastly, I'll end with this. The more that we can be independent, the more that we lack dependency on the system. That's a good thing. I'm not saying government is not there to help you, but what we've seen really in the last track record is most of the things that the government is doing for us, most of the things that we rely on other people to do for us, is making us more dependent on a system that is broken. If we want to change our life and we want to see that 24-hour period would not affect us as much, it would affect everybody in America, but wouldn't affect us as much with the collapse of a dollar, with the collapse of the economy, with the collapse of the goods and the supply chain. You know how that would not happen? Is being more independent, being more sustainable. I preach this almost every day when it comes to sustainability and independence, is finding the fact that you need to depend on yourself and not everyone else. So that means when the government is not on a budget, you are even more, because what they're doing is actually affecting you. That means when the supermarket has tons of food, you should have tons of food as well, because we know the supply chain could very well end that. We also know that the dollar, yes, you have dollars. Yes, you need dollars to live. Yes, you need this economy to keep going. But we also need to look at putting up other forms of money, other forms of assets. So think prior to the dollar. Think of gold. Think of bartering goods. Think of food. Think of things that bring value to yourself. assets. If you have debts, you need to pay them off. You need to cut the credit cards up. You need to get the house payment down. You need to provide yourself maybe with a side hustle for the time being, so then you can prepare and bring more money into the home. So therefore, when this period comes, or when tough times come, you've got some money stockpiled, or you've got some money to where you can invest in something to bring value to your home. 24 hours, one day, one catastrophic thing could change everything as we know it in America, because our American stability is not nearly what it once was. We have a weak leader with a weak economy, with a fact that the adversarial relationships we have built in this world, where really the powers against us are stronger, not because of the dollar, not because of the economy, not that I'm building them up, but they've not put themselves in crazy wars like we have. They've not hurt their economies like we have. They've not destroyed their own dollar like we have. Their leaders can actually speak in a whole sentence without having to mumble. We have to realize that when our government is causing problems for us, we have to be more independent and sustainable, so we're not in need of someone coming to our rescue. So guys, please prepare. Please buy these things, do these things, understand the value of being sustainable and independent, because when you're independent, you're not as dependent on something if the system starts to break. 24 hours could be very detrimental to America with any of these situations. Don't let it be detrimental to you and your family. Guys, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about this video. The whole point is not to scare you. The whole point is not to make you panic. The point is to make you to prepare. And that is what's important. Thank you for watching. God bless. Happy home.
Like I can fly. You can take me high.